coming up on this week's episode of the Grassroots podcast.
It's definitely the goal to not be a factor in the result of the game. And occasionally it can happen. In a one-goal game, if you make a mistake, that's sort of rule related. You can cost the team a game, and you can affect the result of the game.
It wasn't like him against the players. He's like, I'm here to officiate this game. I want you guys to decide who wins and loses. I'm just here to officiate.
The people that excel at officiating tend to have a playing background.
Hi, I'm JFK.
And I'm Matt.
And we are in Thought Fox Studio, and this is the Grassroots podcast. We have our special guest with us, Duchemin, and he is going to be with us to talk about officials. Just officials. Yeah. That's it. So, Rob, we're going to give a little background. You came to Australia in 1996. You're originally from Sydney, Nova Scotia, Canada. That's quite unfortunate. You played hockey growing up. You've also played for the local team in Newcastle, the ice hockey team, the Newcastle North Stars. Pretty much you've done everything in an ice rink besides drive a Zamboni. I guess continue with that intro and fill in the gaps.
I have done just about everything. I think I've coached, I've refereed, I've played, and right back to when I was a kid. That's when I started refereeing when I was 10, and I announced, I worked the clock. I loved being at the rink, and one day there was no referee, so I said I'll go do that because that's extra ice time. So I'm on the ice, and I did probably 2 or 3 years back home early on when I was a kid, but I kind of had to let it go once the hockey really kicked in bantam and midget, and I left it for a while and picked it back up after university, after my hockey career ended in Canada, and moved on from there and worked some pretty high-level hockey in Canada.
Good stuff. So officials are a big part of the game. I like them. I love them. Sometimes I hate them. Hate's such a strong word. I highly dislike. But they play a huge role in the game. Sometimes they can be the difference between a win and a loss. Actually, I take that back. I don't think referees are the difference between a win and a loss. Sometimes I think teams wait too long and they want to blame it on the refs. Personally, as a coach, as a player, I never want to put the game that, we lost that because of the refs. Yeah. However, there are good calls. There are bad calls. And we just want to talk about that and just talk about how active they should be in a game, how they should always be active in the game, but I feel like they have a role where they're a part of it, and it's not a separation of player and referee. What are your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree with you. I think too many times players have the mentality that the referee is against them, and I definitely don't think that works in their favour for the remainder of the game. Rob, what do you think about that? Do you think you've ever kind of refereed a game where you think you've played a part in the result of the game, or?
Well, it's definitely the goal to not be a factor in the result of the game, and occasionally it can happen. In a one-goal game, if you make a mistake, that's sort of rule related. You can cost the team a game, and you can affect the result of the game. That's a little bit different from a judgment call, whereby your judgment is your judgment,
sure.
And the end result could affect the game of your judgment, but at least you're sticking within your rules and you're calling the game properly according to the rules.
So now, when you say calling the game according to the rules, obviously you have a rule book. And there is quote unquote black and white, where it's like this is a call, this isn't a call. If player does A, B, and C, then you call D. Yeah. When it comes down to that, how as an official, how do you gauge that to be a good official, to be a part of the game, to officiate it properly, but not call every stinking call because you don't have to?
Yeah. Well, that's really the big challenge, and good referees will go out there with a clear mind, with no preconceived notions on the teams, the players.
I like that.
Yeah, that's the number one thing. You have got to have a clear mind. You can't go out and assume that one team is going to play the style of play that they always play, or one player, because you'll go and you won't react correctly to the situation. To what you see.
You don't say, because I feel like, we maybe can get some stats, Michael. We can have Michael bring up some stats for John Kennedy. I've heard of this guy. He's quite the aggressor, but I have an aggressive style game. In North America is what helped me get to the ranks in hockey. When I came to Australia, it is what put me in the box majority of the game.
Time and time again.
My first 2 seasons, my first season, 100 plus PIMs in 28 games. When you're talking about 15, 20-minute periods.
Yeah.
So the first period is 15, second period is 15, 20. So it's 10 less minutes in a game, and yet I'm getting 100 minutes in a season, 28 games. As of now, it has reduced, but I think there was a target. You could say there was a target on my back, but I think players do get that notion or players get that reputation where they could be a cheap player, or they could be a hard hitter, or they do this and that. Granted, if they are a cheap player, because there are cheap players out there, as a referee, I think you should be aware of that. But if you know someone's a big hitter, or if you know someone likes to chirp and things like that, should you be trying to take that part of their game away as an official?
Well, absolutely not. I mean, that's just definitely what you can't be doing as an official. Again, it goes back to the idea when you step on the ice, you should have a game plan, obviously, on how you're going to set the tone for a game. It should be the same for every game. It shouldn't change. You go out on the ice, and your goal should be to get the teams to play the best style of hockey to entertain the fans. And that might involve, in the first period, calling things fairly tight, and to see how the teams respond. Matt, you mentioned teams and players have to react and respond to how the ref is calling the game.
Yeah.
When I went out there in the first period, I was always setting the tone. I might call a little tighter in the first period, but if I don't call it tight in the first period and let things go, I can't change what I call in the third period because I didn't call it in the first period. And teams will push that line according to what I'm not calling. So I'd much rather go out and set that tone in the first period, and then the teams react, and you do that with communication as well, and as well as the penalties you call. Hopefully you get the teams on side to what you're trying to achieve with the game, and then your second period, your third period should flow on nicely from there. And we always say, for me, you talk about 60% penalties in the first, 30 in the second, and 10 in the third.
I've never heard
that's
that.
your goal.
I've never heard
that's
that.
Your
goal. I'm a math type of guy. I'm analytical, and to ever hear that, I think that's great.
Yeah.
And like you said, the key words for me was consistency. I think consistency is king, because so many times you get referees that are just like, I'll let this go, and then out of nowhere they'll just start calling in the second period.
Yeah.
And it just throws me off.
We had an example of that this year, even where there was a call that was let go in front of the net. It's always kind of controversial, defenders backing up their goalie and stuff like that. And there was a guy who got hit in the back, pretty obviously into the net, and the referee decided to let that go. And we talked about it, and he said, "Yep, look, I didn't think there was anything in it. The guy was just defending his goalie." And then came third period, the exact same thing happened, yet he called it. So and that really puts guys offside. And I totally agree with you. You got to be consistent the entire game. So I do think it's a fairly big issue in Australia.
As a referee, you're on the back foot. If you let those niggles go, those hooks, and particularly if you let a bad one go in the first, you're chasing it the whole game.
Yeah,
your back's against the wall. Your back is against the wall with the players, and by the time the third period comes, if you end up with 10, 30, 60 in your game, you haven't done a good job.
Yeah, right.
And I feel, as for a referee, for them to be effective, communication is key. I think I'm going to start catering this more towards, we're going to really speak about the AIHL. For those of you who don't know, that's the Australian Ice Hockey League. Both Matt, and our other host, Dave Ferrari, play in the AIHL. Matt has played the longest out of all of us. Matt, how many years have you played?
8 years now.
8 years.
Yeah.
And yes, for those who don't know, there is ice hockey in Australia. It's great. I've been here since 2012. I've absolutely loved it. I enjoy it. Ducky. I didn't throw out your nickname.
No,
Rob Ducky. Okay, so Ducky, he's played also in the AIHL. The officiating in the AIHL, to be honest, is below par. It is a hindrance to the league. And if the league wants to expand and wants to keep growing and become a premier league, everyone's like, oh, no, it's always going to be a hobby. No, let's be honest. There are NHL draft picks that are coming. You have East Coast players. You have AHL players. This league is growing. People want to come to Australia and travel. Players want to stay in shape in the offseason. It's like a hotbed for hockey players. And I think right now the hindrance is officials. And the reason being, you get some absurd calls. Absolutely absurd call. Here's a good example. You could have the puck. And like people are going to be listening to this right now. They're like, no, it can't be that bad. No, you can have the puck. Someone can come and try to hit you. You can knock them down, being just strong on your feet, and they will call you for interference. Like there's stuff like that. Or the time where I've seen an instance. It wasn't a game that we played, but yes, it was. And where literally he was blowing the whistle for the goalie to cover the puck. The goalie was getting ready to cover it. He thought the play was done. But the goalie didn't have it covered. But he was blowing the whistle for that. Blows the whistle, but then a split second later, someone comes in and puts in the rebound. So instead of being like, no, like admitting that he blew the whistle too long, he just kind of goes with it and says it's a goal. He's not assertive with this call. I don't know. Michael may have to censor this. I'm going to go there. But there are some referees in certain regions, and I'm JFK. Like, I'll throw out a name. I'm JFK. I'll even say, who's up? I'm JFK. I'm JFK. Some of these guys, I just feel like I appreciate them. I don't take that away. I appreciate referees. We need them. They need to be a part of the game. But I feel like they separate themselves from the game, and they feel like they always have to be like an authoritative person, as in like they're not helping the game flow. It's like the players versus the referees. Yeah, and I think when it gets separation. And everyone knows once the cameras come out, once we get on Fox Sport, because once again the league is expanding. Once we get on Fox Sports, that's when you just see their hands going up, like they're doing the YMCA the whole game.
I think it comes back to what you mentioned, like the people you've mentioned are not the best communicators as officials, I think. And if we could improve that and the consistency of games and the calls that they make, then it's going to improve the league dramatically in the game.
So, okay, like if I'm an official, Matt, for example, you're cross-checking the crap out of someone. Not your game, because usually if Matt goes into the box, it's either a bad call or like it's
never my fault.
It's never Matt's fault. So if I'm seeing that, when I've had good officiating from back home, I would hear the ref, hey, Matt, Lindsay, ease up on the stick. And then if you keep going like an idiot, okay, he has to make that call. There is another, I'm going to go, like we could sit here all day on the bad calls. Another one, I guess, is a delay of game. If you hold the puck against the wall in your defensive zone, is it defensive zone or offensive zone? Can you? The book hasn't changed that much. Ducky, I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, you can't hold it against the board anywhere.
Okay, anywhere. Okay, you have to move it. But what would you do in this? What would you do? We may have to have a new segment. What would you do? A player, he's on the PK. He's in his own defensive zone. So puck goes to the corner. He has his back to the play, so he can't go left or right. Hands are tied. Puts the puck against the wall. What do you call? Or wait, what do you do?
Are you making an attempt to move it? Am I yelling at you to move it?
You're not yelling
at it. Ignoring at me?
You're not yelling at it. The other team's sitting back. You're not yelling.
Yeah.
Other player doesn't know what's going on behind them. Delay of game. I would call it delay of game. I would call it right away. Why would you give that player the chance to move the puck? Why would you communicate to him? I want to put my hand in the air. I want to be a part of the game. That seems see, that's the thing. Like literally you're seeing a play happen. I feel time and time again, and I'm gonna beat this to death. It's like they want to make calls. They want to stop the play. They want to be a part of the game. And even when players talk to the refs, I'm not going to lie, referees get abused verbally all the time here. And I think that's anywhere. Referees are going to get abused. But there was a viral tape of an AHL ref, and he had the GoPro thing going on, and you can hear him communicating throughout the whole thing. That was art to me. Like, I almost wanted to be a referee after watching that, because he was mucking around with the players. He would call him, stop being a D-bag, and just things like that. And communicating with the players. And it's like, hey, I called this. And he was assertive, but it wasn't like him against the players. He's like, I'm here to officiate this game. I want you guys to decide who wins and loses. I'm just here to officiate. And that's what it should be. Yeah,
well, I mean, that's what we all try to do. I mean, the names you mentioned aside, I'm not gonna go there. Okay. But I will talk about what makes a good official and how a good official should go out there and approach that side of it. You're absolutely right. I mean, you can prevent most things from happening and not have to make the call if you just talk to the guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd much rather when a guy's against the boards has his back to the play, and I can see very well that John's going to go in and hit him in the back.
Whoa.
Before that happens, I'm calling out. Saying, watch his back.
Yeah.
And right away, it just, it's that trigger. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, he's watching me. So if I do something stupid, I'm going to get called. You do that all game. I never shut up when I was on the ice. I've been mic'd up, and I've listened to a few of my games on mic, a few AIHL games that I did, and it's insane how much I never shut up.
That's why everyone keeps trying to get you back.
That's it. And that is on the record.
And that's what
so
you
many
have
people
to
want
do.
you back.
No. I can unretire again. Now, look, there's a few issues. You covered a lot. You covered off on a lot there, but obviously communication, feel for the game. They're the two keys.
Yeah.
And the guys that have the best communication, the guys that have the best feel for the game. No disrespect to the guys that are going out there that don't have a hockey background, that don't have a playing background.
Yeah.
Any person that will put the stripes on and go out there and call a game at any level is appreciated.
Yeah.
But the best officials have played the game.
Yeah.
Can you say that again? Can you say that again? Because I'm sure there's going to be officials. There's going to be players. Say that one more time for our audience.
I'll say the first part again. Anyone that goes out there and has a go, and no disrespect to the guys that have not played the game, but the people that excel at officiating tend to have a playing background. And that's been proven. I mean, I did games back in the Western Hockey League with a couple of linesmen who had played high level, and they were targeted after 1 year by the NHL. They were pulled right out of the WHL. And fast track to the NHL based on the fact that they were high level players.
And see, I feel like that goes across the board for all sports. I know I played baseball and I was also an umpire. In the summer, trying to make some cash on the side. And as an umpire, when I was indecisive, that's when I got eaten alive. And as an umpire, because every call, every pitch, you're making a call. You're making a subjective judgment on something. Like, it's not like black or white. It's like, is it here, or did the kid crouch a little bit? His strike zone's this or that. And the big thing that we learned through our umpire classes was just be assertive and be loud. If I was like, sure, then people wouldn't know. But if I'm like, ha, I watch it, and you were vocal and you got into it. Or even if they saw that. If a throw's going down the first base, you need to get into a position because you have a catcher here. You could have a batter there who's a lefty. You need to get into a position so you can make that call. And that's huge. When when the coach sees that you're moving around, you're taking your mask off, you're in the game and you're alert. Yeah. Oh man, they're on top of that.
Yeah.
But if you are, let's switch it up, a referee in ice hockey, if you're on the blue line or you're probably 5 feet from the blue line making a call on the blue line, and it happens to be a controversial call, well, I don't feel confident in you because you're not in the right position. Or if a puck could have gone in, but you're still hanging at the far blue line or at the red line, I'm gonna put that under. I'm gonna judge you based on that. I'm like, you couldn't see it. I can't tell you how many goals have been called back because, well, I didn't see it go in. But did you put yourself in the best position to see it go in?
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? Okay, if I understand you don't want to call something that's not there. Great. But did you do everything that you could? And I think that goes back to their skating ability. Yeah. What are referees doing is I don't know the referee course, so maybe you could tell me. Maddie, you can probably chip in on this too. But do the officials here have to go through a skating course?
Look, you're absolutely right about that. About what you said earlier about selling the call and confidence through your call and positioning. A lot of times you can make a bad call, but if you're in the correct position and you show confidence in the bad call, no one will say anything.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah. If you were right there. Yeah.
Conversely, you can make the best call in the world from the red line, call a goal, and teams will get up to you because you're in a poor position. So you're absolutely right. Look, the main thing that I see that's happened in the last sort of, even since I started in the AIHL playing, the leagues progress so far and so fast that it's just getting away from the officials and the quality of the officials. There are some good officials. There's some good officials out there having a go, and I don't think they deserve to be tarred by the same, with the same brush. I've seen a lot of games. They go out there and do the best they can.
Yeah.
And for the level that they're at. They're operating. A lot of them are operating at their maximum, and they do a good job. And without them, there's no league. Okay, there's no league. Where are we going to find 40 officials to call the AIHL at the level you're talking about?
Yeah.
It'd be great. It'd be fantastic. But at the end of the day, we have to make do in this country with the best that we've got. And a lot of them are very good. I look at Jeff Scott in that call that he made, that penalty shot call in the grand final. And that call was just outstanding. It was just an outstanding call that's world class, right?
Yeah.
So you look at that and you go, yeah, well, that guy should be out there handling it.
Yeah.
You know? But at the end of the day, with regards to skating, with regards to communication, feel for the game, all those things that go into refereeing, it's a hard job. And right now, the hockey is so good.
Well,
I can't believe.
Is there anything within the courses?
Well, it's, you know, you're only dealing with a certain pool of people willing to stick their hands up and have a go. That's the issue.
Do you think it comes down to, because I know in the States, in North America, refereeing is a career option.
Absolutely.
Whereas here, no one's paid high enough to warrant putting in that much effort.
Yeah, and it frustrates me a lot because you're absolutely right. Refereeing is a career in Canada. But what comes with that is intense competition in Canada. When I moved to Australia and you know, when I retired from the AIHL and wanted to stay involved and picked up refereeing again, I had 2 world championship assignments within 2 years. You know, I did an AIHL grand final, then I went to Mexico, then I went to Turkey, and I never would have had those opportunities in Canada. So with officiating in a small country like Australia, there's more opportunities. There's more opportunities, and maybe that's what needs to be. You know, there's a couple of things that, in my opinion, needs to be done. You sell that side of it. But I think in order to get more people involved, I think there has to be some incentives at the grassroots, maybe at the club level, to get more people involved in refereeing, and particularly targeting players. And that might mean at a club level, maybe a reduction in fees. Some incentive to get these guys. Hockey is, you know, going nuts in the senior levels.
It is.
But all these senior guys are going out loving their hockey, but they're not doing anything else. And no offense to them, that's great. A lot of guys have different situations, but if there's an incentive for a few of those fairly good senior guys to pick up officiating, they, you know, as you know, some of them are great hockey players, and they'd be able to walk right into the AIHL very quickly and be those guys that have that experience. You know, that feel for the game as a player, that you guys maybe would appreciate a bit more. You know, getting a bit more of that professionalism, that feel for the game out of these guys.
What's your opinion on? Because I know I don't know if they still do it, but when I came up through the North Stars organization, we had to do, it was compulsory to do the referees course. Is that still happening, or?
Yeah, it still is. But look, at the end of the day, you're taking a bunch of 14-year-old kids that have no interest in refereeing.
I was about to say, is there much of a conversion rate to actually officiating? No.
And I've taught those courses. I've taught the courses with 60 Bantam age kids in the room that just don't want to be there. So my personal opinion is I don't think that's an effective strategy. I'm more in favor of some incentive to get these kids, and well, not only kids, but get them involved in refereeing. But and that has to happen at the grassroots. It has to happen when they're young.
I think there needs to be a bit more promotion and a distinct pathway that people can visually see of where they can get to with their refereeing in Australia. Like, especially, you know, you could referee the international level. Maybe it's not a career option for you in sense of money, but to be able to travel the world and things like that, you know, maybe we'll get a few more referees by doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, the hard part is getting the guys that just love playing. They just love playing. I was one of those guys. I just love playing, but there has to be some. You know, it just frustrates me that so many people love hockey, but we can't convert them to coaching. We can't convert them to reffing. We can't do that.
So this has been in the rumor mill for a while. Importing referees. Importing referees, because you know, we're talking about the level of play, and we've seen that the level of play in the AIHL has increased from the influence of imports. Do you think importing, say, you can import what? A referee for each state. Where you could do 2 in New South Wales, 1 in Melbourne, 1 in Okay, you don't even have to do it. Just 4. Just 4. Have them rotate around, hypothetically speaking. And while they're here, be able to do some type of officials course or do something. So we're investing back into the referees because we're saying they are a part of the game. They're a huge part of the game. Well, let's invest back into it. So why hasn't that happened? What is because you know what? We are visionaries in SA, and we were able to import coaches here for lacrosse. And I think that was like a huge step. People, once again, it's Australia. You're here from North America. I'm here from North America. It's an incredible place to be. I don't think you have to really you don't have to sell yourself that much. It's like, hey, you can come to Australia. Referee will give you accommodation. I'm sure each team has some sort of accommodation that they can pull together. As long as their accommodation is taken care of, pay for their games or something. If they just fly here, I'm sure there's a way you could work it out financially. Why haven't we explored these options? And then and I feel that there's people higher up in the IHA, or what's the governing body for officials?
Well, IHA.
IHA, the governing body for officials, that are threatened by it, and they don't look to expand it. They don't look to what are they doing in order to better the sport, better the referees.
That's a tough one, and it's obviously something I'm aware of. That topic of bringing guys in has been that's been around forever. Look, IHA provide the referees to the AIHL. That's the reality. That's the system that's always been.
And just for those who don't know, IHA,
Ice Hockey Australia. Sorry.
Let's throw it out there.
Yep. So they're under IHA's jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Now, it's very much the opinion or there's 2 different sides. There's 2 different sides. There's a group. One side will say those imported referees will take time away from our local referees and will hinder their development.
They're investing into the game. Okay. People are saying that about players now, though. I'm not going to go at you per se, but people say that now, like, you bring imports in, so that's taken away from, especially the goaltending position. You only have one goalie compared to other positions. It's like, well, that's taken away from the players and their development. Yes, no. It's like there's still that opportunity. Instead of looking at it as, someone else better came in. Okay, I'm just going to throw my hands in the air. Yeah. Like if you're an athlete, if you're in any competitive sport, take that as a challenge. Yeah. Get amped. Yeah. If someone comes in that's better than you, or that everyone conceives is better than you, either A, fold, or B, you toughen up and you just work hard. Not work harder, but then you can look to them as inspiration. Like, I aspire to be that person. It doesn't have to be a competitive butt heads or now I got to go do a rocky workout every day in order to get better. Like, I would look at if you bring in a better player, I'm like, oh, wow. There's something I can learn from this person. Yeah. They're not exactly stealing from me. How about I absorb as much as I can from them?
Yeah, sure. And that's that's your opinion.
True.
The other side of the coin is, and a definite opinion is, these guys will come and take the development opportunities from our own guys. Okay, so if they're doing X number of games during the season, that's X number of games that our guys could be doing. And my personal opinion, I think it should be explored. I've always thought it should be explored. Not so much to get these guys in to operate all of our AIHL games, but to get these guys in to and have them actually put back into the into the kids, and do courses, do assessments on the local kids, and it'd be a complete package, right? If you're bringing these guys, a couple of guys over, say, and you base them in certain places, and you develop a set of responsibilities or a set of things they have to tick off on during their exchange, whatever you want to call it, during their stay, you obligate these guys. You say, well, we're bringing you here, we're paying you, we're putting you up, we're doing whatever. This is what we expect of you. And if it's tied into Canadian hockey as well, the guys that are selected, and make no mistake, there would be hundreds of Canadian officials that would stick their hands up to do this. Hundreds. You tie it into Canadian hockey, and the guys that come over here would be definitely
outstanding citizens.
they be picked by Canadian hockey, and they'd be expected to perform and put on a good show and demonstrate what they're doing in Canada.
I think that's what you'd have to be careful of is the selection process, because like even this year we had an AHL East Coast guy come out and ref a game, and I personally didn't think he was any better than any Australian referees.
Yeah.
I beg to differ. I thought once again the communication factor was there. The rapport that he had with the players was there.
But you're not going to get the top guys. The top guys. They're not going to come here.
Even junior hockey, even junior referees would be great. Like you could pick referees from the USHL or North American Hockey League.
That's right.
Like, and they would be great.
Yeah, that's right, and that's sort of the level. I think that you get a couple of guys over and you base them somewhere, and they do a certain number of games a month, and they also have responsibilities to go out and do assessments on locals. Yeah, you can involve them in
almost set up a referee academy or something.
Well, just you get your money's worth out of these guys. Put it that way. You do that. Now, my opinion is, I think because the league is so good right now that I think there's scope to have a couple of really high level guys, come over and work it, just like imports. And again, I got to say it again. That's really just my opinion. Yeah. And I appreciate the other side of the coin. I appreciate the people that say, no, we're not doing that, because if that guy does a game, then that's a local guy that could be in doing that game learning.
You know what? I think that's closed-minded. I think I want to respect opinions, but that's very closed-minded, and it's not expanding. It's like that's the best for that one person. So what you're saying is you're putting that one person over everyone. So because this one person loses one game when they could be practicing it's bad habits. They could be practicing bad habits instead of taking that 1, 2, maybe 3 games away from them and investing into them. Give me a fish for a day, feed me for a day, teach me how to fish, feed me for a lifetime. Damn. I'm so driven by we should have it.
Yeah, and my opinion, I agree. I agree. Like I said, I appreciate the other side of the coin, but my own opinion, personal opinion, is that I think there's scope to have a couple of guys. And when I watch that hockey, I go and watch, the level of the hockey that it's at now. And the hockey, I'll say it again, I believe the hockey is getting away from the referees. And we can't just produce referees at the drop of a hat. We can't do it unless obviously we get guys that have a bit of aptitude, that played at a pretty good level. Yeah. And looking at guys that retired from the AIHL. And I loved it. I loved it for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And they could walk right in right now and be calling games right now.
Awesome. Well, that was great. So now we're going to bring in our guest. He's not even a guest. He's part of the team. We're bringing in Jason for Better Than Yesterday. He's going to give us some health tips and related directly to officials and officiating. Jason.
Gentlemen.
How's it going?
Good. Yourself?
Good. So you were listening to the conversation. Yes. How can you apply health, nutrition, and different things to this conversation of officials?
Absolutely. A bit of a controversial hotbed, this one. Honestly, whenever I speak to any of my athletes, and I always talk to them after whatever game that they've played, and it's basically, how'd the game go, get their take on it, and there's generally a lot of info that comes back my way of things I can't control, and that's generally in relation to officiating at the end of the day. I think it's really about taking that center of focus back to yourself, about what you can control. Because if you get something that might be controversial or might be a bad call, how do you feel?
Wait, from what side of it? As an athlete?
As an athlete, as a player. How do you guys feel?
I get more
frustration. Wouldn't say anger, but just frustration is probably the biggest one, because it could affect the outcome of the game or even my game. If I don't handle it properly.
Absolutely. How about you, Jase?
No, same thing. Usually I have that small window of pure rage. If people know me off the ice, I would like to say I'm a nice person, but on the ice, a different side of me comes out. But from a bad call, I will go on the scale of 1 to 10, I go to 100. I'm just how can you call that? I'm going off my head. I'm a different person, but I will say I do have a good bounce back rate where like after a minute of being in the box, I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. And then I'm back ready to, like, there's nothing I can do. It's not like if I get more angry, then he's going to bring me out the box. So yeah, I would say I have a minute of pure rage.
Absolutely. And it's just, I think it's how long the athlete will actually marinate on that moment and really, you know, let it control them. But from what evidence shows, I mean, you get angry, you get stressed, you tense up. So from my perspective, when I'm looking at that, your risk of injury goes up. So if you take a hit, you're all tense up, you're not going to absorb that impact. If you're changing direction, your body's not going to absorb all of those forces as they would. It's really about getting that perspective back. And I think first and foremost, remember why you're playing the game. Yeah. First and foremost, it's a game. It's enjoyment. The world will not end.
for some people, Jason, it's life and death.
And you know, like adding, and we'll get onto that in a later segment. Once you get paid to play a sport as well, and you know your livelihood depends on it. There's so much more riding on it in terms of that pressure, in terms of that stress. But it's about channeling that and channeling it the right way. And it's go, okay, I can't control that, but what can I control? You know, I can get back on defense quicker. You know, I can be a bit more vigilant. But if you let that cloud your head, you're going to get tunnel vision, and your performance will drop out the window, regardless of what you put into training. That moment can completely take the rug from underneath you, really.
Wow. For sure.
That's deep.
See, and see, that's a completely different perspective of it. Like, and like, that's why we have Jason. People make sure you grab these nuggets as he brings them. But I guess for an official, when you say, I guess on the official side of it, they're sometimes the volunteers, sometimes low paid and everything. How do, like, when they're getting verbally abused? Because even if they make a bad call, they have to bounce back and keep going. Or even if they make a good call and get yelled at, like they could have a coach like in their face yelling. And sometimes that's intimidating. And even though you get a bad call as a player, like you tense up for a bit and you're okay. But how does a referee rebound off that? And how does this apply to them?
It's hard. You mentioned it before. It's confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, I'll name drop one situation. I did a game on the lines, and Mike Babcock was actually coaching.
Mike, wow.
And he was coaching the Western Hockey League. And he dropped down, and I was in front of the gate, in front of the players' bench, in front of the gate, just standing there after a call. And he was above me, and I could feel him. He didn't say anything. I could feel him. And then he just grabbed the gate, and he banged it 20 times. Just opened and closed it 20 straight times. And I just stood there, and I was pretty much paralyzed. Like you said, what do you do? How do you handle that? At that point, I was just hoping it was going to stop. You can't run away. You're out there. You're exposed. You can't run away. You just have to try to cop it. Now with, there's some strategies that I used to use when, a lot of times the player will just want to be heard or acknowledged. He can vent all he wants. He can yell. He can scream. But at most players, JFK, notwithstanding JFK going off his nut, most players just want you to want to know that you've heard them and acknowledged them. So if you look them in the eye and just just look them in the eye and listen to them, and quite often a player will bring themselves down under those circumstances. For me, have I made some bad calls? Absolutely. Have I hoped that a team doesn't get scored on a power play after I put a guy in the box with a bad call? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have I gone to that player after he's come out and the team didn't get scored on and go, geez, thank God, Matty, you guys didn't get scored on because that was a brutal call. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. Absolutely. How did that make Matt feel? He might have been really ticked off at the call originally, but when I went to him afterwards, after a couple of minutes, and he knows the team didn't cost the team, and I acknowledged the fact that, geez, that was not very good work on my part. Yep. It brings him right down.
Absolutely.
And that's a strategy that communication strategy that you talk about, right?
Absolutely.
But, it can be at times you can get very anxious and very out of control with it.
It's really another skill, managing people as well, because you've got very much a person as an official in a power position, but a lot of top-level athletes are very much an alpha personality as well. So you need to hear them, and letting them have their say is absolutely fantastic and bang on, I think. But if you cut that off, you might as well pour fuel on the fire.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. There's obviously, like, time and place helps. As a referee, there may be a time where you have to cut someone off. You just have to.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you're on the ice, you can position yourself, you can move around the ice so that you actually don't give the players or the coaches the opportunity to really vent and lose the plot on you. Just by your positioning, just how you move. You can tuck around in behind your linesmen, you can tuck around in behind other players. And once they don't have that opportunity, that brings them down a little bit. So there's lots of strategies that refs should be using, good refs use to...
How easy or hard is it to not take the abuse personally?
Yeah, well, I mean, in my situation personally, it's quite hard because I did play, for so long. I played for the North Stars. I went out there and fought with these guys. We lost, we won.
And stuff, yeah.
Like, they're my guys. I live in Newcastle. They're my best friends. And now all of a sudden, I'm out there refereeing, right? And it was very hard. It was very hard. And I really appreciated the guys right across the league with how they accepted me when I did switch over to refereeing. Now, hopefully I earned a bit of that. But by the same token, I think guys gave me a chance and just said, he's having a crack now as a referee. And Glenn Full will be in the same position. He played for a long time in Adelaide. Yeah. The same thing. He's in Adelaide, and it's even harder in the AIHL because you do most of your games in your hometown. Right?
Yeah.
You're out there every game, and that
you have to see people afterwards.
Yeah, well, and that exposure for referees kind of tricky as well, right? Every week, same guy, right? Every week, and it's not good for the team. It's not good for the referee either. But in the end, it kind of wears you down a little bit after 3 or 4 or 5 years of just that constant, it's water off a duck's back.
Yeah.
But over the years, it does wear you down a little bit, and in the end, Rob Stark could just give me the look. Just give me the look, and I'd go,
I did it again. Jason,
okay, you got me.
So we're speaking a lot on the mental side of it. So I know there are good brain foods and things like that. As an official, preparing for a game, nutrition-wise, that's why you're here. What things should they be avoiding? Because I know there's a lot of young referees. We have a young audience. We have the energy drinks. I've had, or even have a person like myself or like Matt. We're doing something 9 to 5, and then at the end of it, we got the official. So I'm going to crack open a Monster, or I'm going to get a Mother, or I'm going to have something like that. What brain foods or what things should they be doing outside of, we know, the water, hydrate, yes. But are there any specific, are there any little things that you would throw out there that they could be doing to help their mental capacity?
I would really go down the road of have to make it very individual, because if you're someone that reacts quite heavily to a stimulant base, as you mentioned, sticking your finger in the PowerPoint before you go out there is probably not the best thing to do, because you're going to be hypersensitive. And that's what you need to be. You need to be fairly mellow, I imagine, from your perspective as well. I think going back to getting a good night's sleep is first and foremost, and not have to go down that road. Having a good balanced diet as well, not eliminating any food groups, and just really making sure it's just whole foods. Nutrition to get a positive influence, it's not a hard thing. If most things in the supermarket in terms of a box packaged item weren't there, I really wouldn't have a job. That's where, the scales have become so skewed, really. When you're going back to natural foods, eating lean proteins, eating your fruits and veggies, grain foods, all of those things go together just to give you a base level of health and performance, really.
Are there any foods that have been known to give you, per se, more focus within the span that you eat them? I guess
it can be,
or would you more acquire your attention span and focus to sleep?
Sleep first and foremost.
Yep.
The ironic part about that whole stimulant side of things, it does increase alertness and does increase focus. So it really does depend on your knowledge of how you're handling those things as well. Caffeine, as we're all drinking here, it enhances alertness, enhances focus. It's one of the most widely used performance supplements around there. So going to the stage of a commercial pre-workout product, which would have 4, 5, 6 cups of coffee worth of caffeine in the one hit.
Wow.
Is overdoing it.
Yeah.
It could be as simple for you if you handle it of having that cup of coffee, just to switch on those neurotransmitters for you, just to get you going. But again, it's not everything in moderation.
Yep.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Thanks for checking out this week's episode of the Grassroots Podcast. If you like what you heard, consider subscribing to us on YouTube or iTunes. We'd love to hear whether you think the grass is greener on the other side. If you're an official, would you rather be a player? Or if you're a player, would you rather officiate? Let us know on our Twitter poll at grassroots_AU. Don't forget to check out our other social media platforms as well. Our Instagram is grassroots_sports, and our Facebook is Grassroots Sports. We also have a weekly newsletter full of exclusive content and competitions. Sign up at our website, grassroots-sports.com.au. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you next time on the Grassroots Podcast.